and welcome to the Kerfuffle special for International Women's Day. And joining me today are my guests, Megan 18, fantastic agent from Haslams in Reading, and also NEAA superstar, Arla superstar. We have Sharon Hemming-Metcalfe. How you doing, Sharon?
Good, really good. Thank you, David.
Sharon is what she doesn't know about inventories, you'll never know. She is a wealth of knowledge on everything around the lettings process. And we're joined by Sharon Carter, who may not be a stranger to some of you on Facebook. You might have seen some of Sharon's interviews with people like Stephen Brown. She's not afraid to tell you what she thinks. And our very own Sarah Blair, Kerfuffle superstar. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm good, thank you, David. Very good.
This is the first time we've coaxed you out of your darkened room into the limelight, right?
Yes, very first one.
Well, we may as well address that. We didn't want to come across as being as pure tokenism for this sort of day, because we sort of thought, okay, we'll let you all sort of get on with it and do it yourselves. And it's a subject which I think these days people have to be very careful with. There is a lot of virtue signaling going on even in our industry. There's tons of it in the different groups and people that have got together, and you need to watch your words and your actions as well. But we wanted to really try and put a positive slant as well on International Women's Day, because I think there's a lot. There is a lot of women working in property, not necessarily where you maybe want to see them. But one of the questions that we were asking the other week was, how can we encourage more women to go into property? Is it a natural job that you think they would go for? Are we engaging with young people at that level? And more importantly, did you think you'd end up in property when you started out ages ago? So I'm going to start with Sharon. Sharon, when you were sort of this tall and you were growing up, and
I'm still that tall, by the way.
When you were just a little bit smaller, when you were growing up, what was your kind of dream ambition? Did you think you would be talking to people about inventories today, for instance?
No, not at all. My dream was actually to go into the army. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do nursing in the army, but events, from a home point of view, kind of it never got there. And but then I started my career in the prison service, and I was there for like 21 years. I worked my way up from an officer all the way up to a governor, and I did that before leaving to start my property life, as it were. Start this whole new chapter, and that was really just born out of an experience, a bad experience that I had with, to be honest, a letting agent, with a process, with an inventory that just didn't protect me. I lost a lot of money, and I just thought, I can do better than this. There's got to be a better way. And I just used all the experience that I kind of gained working in the prison service, working with Her Majesty's Inspectorate, working on standards, and then brought that over to what I'm doing now. So it was never ever a conscious decision, but it was all kind of led by my experience that it involved me getting into loggerheads with an agent, loggerheads with tenants, and just having a really bad lettings experience. And I just thought, there's got to be something better than this. It can't all be like this, because that was my first ever experience as well as. So
what's really interesting about what you've told us is that you were in something far, far away from the property industry, although they do deal with long-term stays. In prison, though, you would imagine that is that a very heavily male-dominated system? Do you need to be tougher than tough? Do you need to sort of, in some ways, did you feel the pressure to conform to being overly sort of tough and to compete with those testosterone-fueled people around you?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, my first few years, it was almost like a rabbit in a headlight, not really sure what to do. Yeah, very male dominated environment. I worked mostly in male prisons. So therefore, from that point of view, my predominant experience was always with my male counterparts. And to be fair, in the main, they were pretty positive. They were really good. But there were a few that were quite negative, and it kind of like made you feel that you had to work that much harder. You had to prove yourself so much more to be worthy of the uniform, worthy of, you know, the praise from your colleagues, and to be honest with you, taken seriously. I mean, I remember one of my first alarm bells being told, "Oh, stay there, love. You go make the tea. We'll deal with it." I kind of looked at him and went, "Excuse me." So my first thought was, well, I'm going to get there first, and I did. But it, you know, it helped shape me, I think, as a person in some respects. I didn't necessarily take it as a negative, but it did help me shape me in regards to how I dealt with things, how I learned to deal with things, and also, to be honest, to develop a bit of a thicker skin, because in that kind of environment, you know, if I took things too much to heart, I'd probably be upset all day, every day. And I didn't want that. I wanted to learn, but I also wanted to prove both to myself and to them as well that, no, actually, I'm here because I'm good. I know what I'm doing and I can do it well.
So that transition then into the property world, which again can sometimes be a male dominated industry, or at least was, and it looks like we see some light at the end of that tunnel. That was a seamless kind of segue into possibly a less confrontational zone.
Yeah, definitely less confrontational, as you can imagine, especially when you're like, you know, previously dealing with like 1,600 male prisoners who really didn't want to be there, you know, and now I'm dealing with a lot of gentlemen and agents and people in the industry that do want to be there. So, you know, the dynamics are definitely different. You know, still get the odd comment, still get the odd thing that think, oh, actually, no, that's not right. But I now know how to deal with that. I've learned how to de-escalate a situation. I've learned how to tackle people and change how I talk to them to get a better response from them, and equally also stand my ground. You know, if I feel I'm right and I believe that what I'm doing is correct, I'll say that, you know, politely but assertively. And I think my experiences, you know, working in the prisons and doing that for 20 odd years really has helped me to be able to actually say, well, no, I want it this way, or I think it should be that way, and I've got a voice, which certainly when I first started out in my career, I don't necessarily think I had.
It's a fascinating story. See, you think you know someone, and then you find out they're the governor of a prison. That's awesome.
I also beg to differ as well. I think when you get to a checkout and you're having to deal with inventories and checkouts and arguing with a landlord that they can't have £600 for cleaning of one carpet, I think that's conflict.
Oh, it's definitely conflict. I've had that a couple of times. And,
not criminal level of conflict, but you know.
No, but you do learn how to deal with that. And I must admit, I've had one occasion where I've actually ordered the landlord and the tenant out of the property because they were so busy having an argument, I couldn't concentrate on what I was doing. So it was literally a case of you out. And they did. So, you know, there's some definite skills going on there. So that's been really quite useful.
So Megan 18 then, when you were Megan 7.5, what was your dream? Where did you think you were going to be?
I'm going to let you into a really big secret. I actually wanted to be Mowgli from the Jungle Book.
Okay.
We're breaking ground today. So yeah, for a good 6 months, I would only wear red pants around the house and wanted to be Mowgli from the Jungle Book. So that was my first career aspiration. Needless to say, I'm not Mowgli from the Jungle Book. So yeah, I guess I wanted to be Mowgli. Then I wanted to be a vet. But then I realized that I didn't want to put animals down. I just wanted to stroke like all the dogs, which wasn't a good enough reason to be a vet. Then I was going to be a journalist, had a degree lined up for that. And then went and did ski seasons and was like, no, it's not for me. But my mum was an estate agent and she used to take me on her repossession valuations in my car seat as a baby. So I think I was firmly etched into my brain, this property industry from the get-go, really. So yeah, she got me a job ordering HIP reports and typing up property details, and here we are.
That's awesome. So when you looked at what your mum did for a living and obviously spending some time with her at work, I mean, I know this, I'm cheating a little bit because we've spoken about it recently, because it's been a very significant anniversary for you recently, but your mum was obviously a huge figure in your life in terms of influence and who you look up to. Was property part of that as well?
I think it was, but not necessarily intentionally, because you know, my mum was a single mum of 3. When we were sick off school, we had to go to work with her. So I used to sit at the back of the office with the typewriter, and I used to get paid in pocket money to fold her tout letters. So, you know, by default, her, you know, and she was really good. You know, she was a manager, and in that era, you know, you didn't get many female sales managers in a state agency in the 90s. So, you know, she was pretty cool. So yeah, I think definitely in all aspects of life, she's been a massive inspiration for me. But yeah, I don't think I had any chance of getting away from property. Now I look back at it, but I still bump into her old colleagues, and they're like, oh, it's like Mini Leslie, or Mark, one of our old bosses, calls me Mini Mink, because he used to call her Minky.
Sharon, go on. Surprise me by telling me you always dreamed about becoming an estate agent.
Absolutely not. No. So I wanted to be a teacher. So I was very bossy. I know you'd never guess that. So from the age of 4, I had my career mapped out. I wanted to become a teacher, and then I wanted to become a school inspector. That was my plan. So that's all I kind of worked for. I went to uni, started teacher training. It was going through the changes of processes of teaching at that time, which I didn't actually agree with. And then my dad went blind, and my mum had a brain tumour whilst I was there. So sister was still at school. I had to come home and basically be carer and suddenly do the grocery shopping and look after the house and all that kind of stuff. And I grew up a lot, and I kind of found my voice. And so it was Christmas time, and I was due to go back to uni, and I was very brave and said to my dad, I'd like to change courses, please. I'd like to do business studies. I don't want to teach anymore. And Dad said, no, you don't start something that you don't finish. You're not going to be an eternal student. You either go back and you finish, or you get a job. And I said, in a very dramatic teenage way, but Dad, you don't understand. I'm going to end up in prison, where Sharon would be keeping an eye on me, because I'm a child. It's all changed now. I don't believe in it. And he was absolutely insistent. So I dug my heels in. And whilst I'd been at uni, Dad was very keen for me to understand. Mum and Dad had always been self-employed, so they were very keen that I understood the process of how you earn money. We were very fortunate as children, but he wanted me to understand the work ethic. So I'd got a job in estate agents at the weekends. So I didn't go back to uni, much to the disgust of my dad. And I got a job in an estate agents, and he was furious. You're going to end up like Susie Lamplugh. You're better than that. You might as well say you're a failed car salesperson. You're better than this. So yeah, it was a very big disappointment. Yeah, and that's how I ended up in property. And in actual fact, my first full-time job, so I didn't go straight into property. I was kind of like, okay, this is what I'll do. So I actually got a job managing nightclub.
Wow.
For a start. I didn't tell Dad that bit. I don't think he ever knew about that job. But I was earning a wage, and he just believed whatever I told him. So I'd rung up quite a large independent / corporate, because there was a job in the newspaper and they were opening an office. And I told them I was working in this club. And he told everybody in the office, because he offered me the job straight away, and he told everybody in the office that I was a pole dancer. And so they were all the boys in the office were really excited about this pole dancer, and then they got me. And I'm like, I am definitely not a pole dancer. So yeah, I was a very big disappointment, not only to my father, but also to the people I worked with.
But okay, we'll just concentrate on that for a second. I take it by this point in your life, and from some of the things you say, you don't give a damn who is disappointed with you or what they think about you. You seem to be quite certain about what you believe, or is that
I'm actually really sensitive, and I'm incredibly soft inside. I have an exterior.
Oh, is that just me, or is she gone?
No, she's
No, just lost her.
And I'm not afraid to.
We lost you there for a minute. Sorry, we
sorry.
lost you at you were just saying that you're quite sort of soft inside, and it's a harder exterior.
And I think my time as an agent, particularly when I set up for myself, I have developed further this exterior of tough, don't care, but actually it's very much in conflict with what my true personality is. I'm a bit like, I could potentially be schizophrenic. I am literally like two people.
We're going to come back to that in a second. Sarah, I asked you earlier on the call what you wanted to be when you were little, and I'm not going to be able to get this image of you asking me if I want chicken or beef out of my head. So, Sarah, would you tell the lovely people at home what you wanted to be growing up?
I wanted to be cabin crew. So one of my dreams was to be a virgin which I never actually got there. But yes, I don't know what it is, just to be the trolley dolly. It was just something from my childhood. But I actually started my career in the travel industry, actually. And years ago, I did well over 10 years there, working my way up into different roles in travel, and a really heavily female dominated industry at the time. And loved it, selling holidays. I was actually in a millionaires club. So my target per year used to be selling £1 million worth of holidays, which you can imagine, which was fantastic. But after that, I fell into the property industry, starting my time at Brief Your Market. So it was a fairly young company when I joined there. And again, did just over sort of 7 years there, helping agents use their marketing platform, really. I was doing training, account management. But yeah, traveling the whole of the UK, visiting all the lovely agents in this industry.
So can we just see one of these?
Yeah. When I get on a plane and I see them, I just think, just let me do it, just one time.
Sarah, where are your nearest exits?
In the front and behind.
I think we need to be able to at least make that wish come true, Sarah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Definitely. You know how Mr. Whale loves dressing up, and I did say from one event we should all go as Kerfuffle trolley dollies. We could have a pink little neckerchief, we could have a full-on outfit, pink stilettos.
There is some sort of glamour to everyone thing, isn't there?
Simon would look lovely as a trolley dolly.
I spoke to Simon earlier, and he said to me that he turns 50 next year, and he wants everyone to throw him a surprise birthday party. So
good idea. I like it.
Your moment.
You think Kerfuffle Airlines? Oh, this could be.
That is cool.
So we've obviously we've all arrived in this industry through really, Megan, you're the only one that was born into it, I'm afraid. The rest of us kind of fell into it at some point, or our lives sort of turned a different path to where we started out. But in terms of whether or not this industry is welcoming to everybody, if it's a place that women can actually now progress, can they, or is there still that sort of pressure that actually it's not an industry where you can progress? There is no real opportunities for progression and to go up the chain, because at some point you're going to clash with a very traditional system. Do I advise my kids to become estate agents, whether they're boys or girls? Actually, is a great question for all of you. I'm going to start in no particular order. Megan.
Well, I absolutely don't want my son to become an estate agent. That's the first question answered. I think tick that one off the list. I think that there's, in my opinion, two sides to this. I think that certainly the last few years, it's felt more like we're more and more represented as women, I think, in the industry. I think that we are becoming more prevalent. Is there still a long way to go? Yeah. The reality is that in the gender pay gap stats that came out last year, I think it was every 80p we earn, a man earns £1. So, and that's on average, and there were some companies that dipped way below that, which is a real shame. For me, I think that we also as women have a part to play in that. It's been statistically shown that we're less likely to apply for these big roles because we're more concerned we don't hit the criteria, whereas a man in the same ilk will just go, yeah, we'll give it a go. And I actually spoke about this in the office yesterday, and all the guys was like, yeah, no, I would have definitely gone for it. And I was like, yeah, proves a point really. So I think we're on the way, but there's still a way to go. But I think as a woman, I think confidently that where I've been in the last 14 years, things have definitely got better.
Fantastic. Well, on the supplier side of things, it's a different type of structure, it's a different ecosystem, but all feeding into that same industry. Sharon, what's your view of it?
The supplier industry is quite diverse, isn't it? I mean, I'm not just talking from inventory provider point of view, but if you look at all of the different supplier options that feed into the lettings process, it does feel like it's more male dominated, especially if you look at, say, for argument's sake, like gas engineers, electricians, that sort of thing. Then when you look at the cleaning side, it tends to be more women. But also if you look at the inventory side, there's actually a lot more men in the inventory business than maybe that some would think, because it's always, and certainly my interpretation and feeling of it, certainly when I first started, was that it was all just mums, trying to do a couple of hours here or there, and just trying to fit it in with the school run. It wasn't really a business, it wasn't really a job, it was just something to make a bit of money, occupy a bit of time, and I've since learned it's so much more than that. But yeah, there definitely is a more male orientated environment in certain respects with some of the agents that I work with. But I have noticed, certainly in my own experience over the last 10 years, that I am seeing women in the agency progress up the ladder, become branch managers, certainly with my own personal clients that I work with as well as, but I don't necessarily see a lot more higher than that. I mean, I see that in Property Mark. If you look at Property Mark, for argument's sake, you've got Nikki Heathcote, who's like the chair, the executive chair. So you do see women in quite high level positions, but not so much, from my personal point of view, in the agency side. I see a couple of branch managers, and I work with some of them as well as, but I don't see a lot of them. I don't see it, the balance yet. But I agree with Megan. I think it's definitely going in the right way. And I also agree with Megan in as much as that we've got to put ourselves forward. Half the battle is having that confidence to say, no, I can do it. I am good. And I not necessarily I've got to prove it, but equally give me the chance to show that I can do exactly the same as anybody else.
So in staying with that sort of lettings theme for a second, my experience of agencies is that lettings and management departments are full of women, and very few men. You would always have some sort of lettings neg that would be more aggressive, in and out. He's the flash guy that's going out bagging the tenants, and then he'd hand all the admin over to some dolly behind a desk and go, there you go, fill that out for me, I'm going to cash in my commission check. And that was the way it was in a number of different businesses that I've been in. And there was that sort of, that's where sometimes women were parked, because there was plenty of work to do, really important. I mean, when we look at the overall lettings process, let's face it, anyone can, don't tell my clients this, but anyone can sell a house, right? But when it comes to lettings and management, making sure that you don't go to jail over a mistake or whatever it is, it's detail, it's got a bit of skill to it, but there's plenty of work. And I just got the impression that we, as an industry, we dumped women into these roles. Who wants to jump on that one?
I think we need to be really careful. So I think property has always been a good industry for women to be part of. And, I'm knocking on now, so I've kind of seen it through different generations. And I genuinely feel that even when I was a young whippersnapper, that there were very good opportunities for women particularly, as Sian said, at sort of branch manager level. And I think that property has always been very good for women to get into, and I think it's even more so now. I do feel there's a little bit of the old boys network that still exists, but I don't think that's just with regards to property. I think it's kind of how it works, but as women we just need to learn how to infiltrate, and I think that's society as a whole. I think as women it's very difficult, because you need to get a balance of how you're perceived. You need to have a balance of your femininity with masculinity. I think if you're a female boss, irrelevant of industry, I think you are judged much more quickly on how you react to a situation. And I've got a lot of examples of that over the years. But I think that's society as a whole rather than just property. But from a career viewpoint, I think property is one of the better industries that give women kind of equal opportunities, personally.
It's a different perspective.
Yeah.
Completely.
I mean, I know as a boss, I know over the years, I certainly know how people will react to me. I do feel that I very quickly had to put on a kind of suit of armor, but then equally, I don't know how I'd have been if I was the male boss of the same company. Can't compare myself.
Do you think, Sharon, sometimes that you're judged more harshly by women than you are by
100%.
men?
Women are more critical, so for and men, but I think you're criticized more by other women than, because women are so focused on appearance. Okay, you'll have the lads at the back who'll be going, oh yeah, she's fit or whatever, but I think women, we're our own worst enemies sometimes. We're horrific. Why is it that if you've got two people standing on stage, that women can focus on how that lady looks rather than the job that she's doing? I know, as I say, from being the boss, without question, there are times where if there'd been a male double of me, God help the world, but if there'd been a male double of me and I'd stood in front of a team and said a speech, and that male double had said exactly the same words, I know without question the team, and predominantly women, but both, would say, oh, she's a bitch, oh, she must be on her period, or something like that. Whereas the male boss would be, yeah, we need to do that, we have respect. And I think that's society as a whole, but us as women need to take the lead on this and take some responsibility of it.
Do you think as well, though, that I know, and David had to give me a pep talk this week, so he knows that I am probably my own worst enemy, because I so heavily criticize myself, and I hold myself at such a high standard that actually I think sometimes a lot of this is down to me rather than men, women, whatever. And literally, I have a line of people around me that have to kind of go, come on, Megan, pull yourself together. And that's the reality, I think, that we've become. But I think the thing is with lettings, like what you were saying earlier, David, is that lettings is absolutely where I ended up, because I was told as a woman I could never work in sales, which is ridiculous. But actually, I think that when you look around you, typically the really successful letting agents is because they're really great at multitasking. And I don't mean to call you men out here, and I know you're outnumbered right now, but
no, it's true.
We are better at multitasking than a man. And you do have to, one minute you're thinking about your legislation, then you're trying to sell it, then you're trying to close the deal. You know, you're having to juggle so many parts. But like, if I look at my team at Haslams in Reading, we are predominantly, it was a male team, and slowly it started to become more and more female embodied. So I think that, again, that aspect of the business is definitely becoming more split.
See, I only ever had predominantly female teams, and it was almost like the token couple of men, and they were the ones that caused more problems, to be fair. And if it was ever coming down to like a serious rent chase problem or anything like that, the best person to do that was always female, because it's less confrontational. And, you know, I could be a Rottweiler, but it wasn't the same reaction. If you were going to visit a male tenant who was known to be a little bit feisty, I would never send a man.
Sarah, you work in the best company in the world to work for. I can't imagine anywhere more fun. But we have a very strong and thriving female contingent within the company, and I often feel outnumbered. But that's cool. My mother still refers to me as her eldest daughter, so it's fine. But from your perspective as a supplier, and now working for Kerfuffle, where you deal with other suppliers, is the supplier space as heavily sort of male dominated? I get the impression that it's fairly even nowadays.
Yeah, I think there's a good mix in there. I mean, I'm really lucky, you know, the people I get to speak to day in day out on the supplier side, you know, there's some real phenomenal people, men and ladies, both of them. But I do think there's a definite mix. I think we still, like Megan and all the ladies saying, we could be doing more. But no, definitely an even mix at the minute.
And we spoke earlier about sometimes we're our own worst enemies, or women in certain roles may be their own worst enemies. At the moment, there seems to be a real sort of a galvanizing of female opinion over social media, particularly in our industry. I mean, I'm not privy to what goes on inside the Women in Property group, for instance, but there's a number of different, there's also women in residential property, but it's now a thing. You know, this 5 years ago, there was none of this whatsoever. And it just feels like perhaps during lockdown, but also with social media being as prevalent as it is, it's an easy forum to kind of get like-minded people together. But they don't always agree. There are diverse opinions, aren't there?
That should be, that should be embraced, isn't it? And I honestly think if I was young now, I think now is the best time ever to be in the property industry, for opportunities that are there, kind of thing, to not have to say it's about being a man or a woman, it's about being the best person for the job. And I think now would be amazing. If I was young now, it'd be fantastic. I think you wouldn't have to kind of prove anything other than your capability of the job, in the same way that, you know, and like I said earlier, I do genuinely think property has always been really good for females, but I think it was harder to get, because of the old boys network, to get the higher level roles. And I think now it's brilliant. And the women in estate agency groups is really good, because as women, we do have slightly other different day-to-day issues going through our various generations than a man would ever be able to comprehend, and those issues will impact your work in a way that a man wouldn't be able to understand. So I think it's good. But the women in estate agency groups are really lovely, but there's not, what I like about those groups, there's not this bitchy element to it. So I think women are saying, do you know what, it's not about being women, it's supporting ourselves. And I like that.
It's how we can help, isn't it? It's basically just understanding that we each have our own individual issues, just as, but to be honest, as human beings, but then we do, as women, also have other things that we have to either deal with, both physically, mentally, you know, from a family point of view. But there's a level of understanding there that we then, you know, when we talk to each other, we go, yeah, I understand that, I get that, I can empathize. But equally also then, but offer advice and support that actually you can then put into practice, you can use, because maybe you've been there, you've seen a family member there, your mum, your sister, and you don't feel like you feel less judged by having that conversation, by saying something, whereas normally we'd probably hold back a bit, not necessarily say what we feel, because we're worried about that judgment side of things. I find in the groups, people are just willing to say, can I help you? What can I do? Have you tried this, or could I do that for you? And you feel more inclined to actually accept that help as well. Whereas I think a good few years ago, we probably just kind of keep it to ourselves, shy away, and not want anybody to bother, and then just kind of suffer in silence.
It is interesting as well what you're saying about the women in the estate agency group. And David, you should really close your ears because you're a boy and you're not allowed. But we did this whole thing about like quotes that kind of, we've been sharing like positive things. And I got tagged in one this morning. I thought it was worth reading out. It said, women need other women in their lives who think they are a big deal. No competition, no backhanded comments, no jealousy, no hate, just I love you, I support you, and there is no one on earth like you kind of energy. And I thought, bingo. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Just more support. You know what? I sort of envy you. Sharon Carter will know the gentleman I'm about to talk about, but I spoke to a fella called Neil Giller, who is very much an advocate of people saying things as it is and should be, and getting it off their chest. But particularly when we talk about men, we are crap at talking about our feelings. We do everything we can to avoid it. And sometimes if we're overcompensating for it, we'll just turn the aggression, the passive aggressiveness up ever so slightly. But it feels like in our industry, at least, that is now rubbing off, and that people in general, whether you're women or men, you are not being as judged for your opinion as it used to be, because it used to be one of those things that you'd say something and everybody else would just jump on your comment and drag you down. Whereas now you feel that actually there's an open forum, and I'm hoping that means that all of these kind of conversations can become much more commonplace. But for sure, it's something that women tend to carry off much better than men for all of the above reasons.
I think the industry has become a lot more.
Can we just get him to do his manly voice again? Did anyone pick up on that? Because that killed me. You were like, well, we're really manly. You had to bring your voice down just to make it sound more manly. I was dying. Sorry.
I'm aware I have a slightly effeminate voice. That's okay.
Sorry, Sharon.
The industry as a whole has become much more gentle. It was this very almost yuppie type industry. And I think it's become quite a lot. Now, I don't know whether this is society as a whole, although I don't actually think it is, but I think the industry has become a lot less male ego type industry, and I think it's become a lot more gentle and a lot more caring. And I do think COVID has had a very positive impact on the industry as a whole, to be honest.
I think it's made us talk more. I mean, this kind of thing that we're doing now, for instance, would never have happened. They just wouldn't have come together if we hadn't been forced into using it. And now here we are, even though we're all back open, it's easy to get to all of you wherever you are and kind of bring all that opinion together. And I love that. Sarah, other than me, who has inspired you along your journey? So in terms of, women that have either given you guidance or helped you along, or people that you've looked up to?
I think one of the biggest ones has been Susanna Maverty. So I used to work with her at Brief Your Market, and then she was helpful in my step over to Kerfuffle, shall we say. I have to mention Mr. Whale or I may get fired, obviously. I knew Mr. Whale as well from my old role, so yes, he's obviously great. But I think, like I said to you before, I speak to some fantastic people in the industry, male and female, but some of the ones that really stand out, like driving forces really of the industry. We've got Louise Moss, who when I come off the phone from her, I'm just like, I need to be better. I need to be like this lady. But also you've got like Amy Shields. She's just had another promotion. She's doing fantastic over there at Sprift as well. And then you've just got some ones that really just, every time I speak to them, like Jane Gardner, I spoke to her the other day on a Monday morning, and I tell you, just having the conversation with her changed my complete day. I mean, it was a lot of laughs, a bit of talk about Botox, that and work. She'll kill me for that. But no, just and also Charlotte from the Able Agent, again, just real great advice, you know, real sort of like I say, just sort of driving forces, really.
It's interesting you mentioned Amy Shields, because she completely ruined my entire evening yesterday by forcing me to think about my life. I was on the phone to her, and she mentioned something about what she'd like to do after her career is over, like what her dream is, and it was lovely. And I said goodbye and whatever, and I walked in the house, and I was like, I don't know what my dream is. Like, I don't know what I'd like to do when it's all over. I don't. About 10 minutes later, I get a text from Amy Shields. Mincy, I forgot to ask you, have you found your dream yet? I spent the entire evening trying to work out what it was that I wanted. But it's interesting that you mentioned those people, because they're all young, and they're all very, very much active. They are in their own right forces to be reckoned with in terms of very successful in their own field. Sharon, who do you look for inspiration?
Funny enough, I was talking to Sarah the other day about this, and it's really got me thinking. And I was, because, like, you know, like what positive female role models are in my life, and it's weird. I don't have a specific person that I would say that, you know, that it's almost like my go-to. I think there's so many people in the industry that I've met along the route, especially over the last 10 years. Because like I said, this is not where I ever expected to be. So everybody I meet, I'm like learning something new, both about them, about the industry, and where everything fits. But I mean, I'm constantly talking to suppliers in the industry, different people, and some of the people, certainly in the inventory side, you got Emily from AJPS, Anthony, oh God, I can't remember the J now. Oh my God, she's going to kill me. Emily from AJPS. That's probably an easier way, rather than me trying to figure out what the acronym stands for. She's going to absolutely kill me. But you know, we've talked about the industry loads and loads of times, and about how, you know, we can like make the industry better. And it's so nice to be able to have a sounding board, having like-minded people, you know, that have got the same kind of aspirations, the same kind of thoughts and hopes for the industry, you know, and where we want to go. I've got a very great podcasting companion, Melissa from MGN Inventories. She's an ex-property manager, and so she knows the industry from that side, and now obviously from our side. So her and I get on extremely well. You know, we talk in similar ways. Our thoughts are the same. But you know, I've been lucky enough to meet people like from Property Market, like Nikki. I talked to Sarah quite a lot, and again Charlotte from Able Agent. She's got a huge amount of time and patience, and really good, like someone to understand and put your thoughts across and kind of get them into kind of some kind of perspective. So I think it's a case of, I get it from all different types of people, and each one brings something unique that like either I hadn't appreciated, didn't know about, or I just kind of helps me cement my own understanding. So I think it's a great way then of kind of like, rather than centering on one person, it's just like getting as much as I can from every single kind of conversation and you know, relationship that I've got.
It's fantastic that we've got blessed with so much variety, if you like, of great sort of inspirational people. Sharon, who does it for you?
Well, to be fair, my mummy is my inspiration because she's amazing. So it's out of industry, but yeah, so she is, over the years, the person that you think, God, if she dealt with all that, this is fine, I've got this. And then, so I'm at the opposite end of my career, really. So, but if I think back to my younger days, I would say a lady who was very inspirational at the time, and probably I didn't fully appreciate how much she was, is a lady. So I was in my first full-time neg job, and there was a lady who was the manager of a company opposite, and she ran the team, and she had this air of confidence as she walked to her car, and I just thought, damn, she's good. And I liked the fact, if I'm honest, that people would say, oh, you know, she's a bit feisty, she's this, that. And I thought, go you. And then she was promoted to like an area manager for that company. And I just remember watching her thinking, damn, that's good. I think more recently, actually somebody who I think is one of the early sort of inspirational people is actually Sally Lawson. She, as a female, pushed herself out there on social media way before it was really a thing.
Yeah, true.
And I think she was very clever and very knowledgeable, and she got herself into, you know, high profile roles and had the respect of the marketplace, not because we're male female, but because of her knowledge and her capability.
She always carries herself with absolute sort of confidence in every situation.
Amazing.
I don't know whether that's real or not, but it's on stage, whether it's on stage or whether you're talking to, she has got control of that.
There's an air about her, there's an aura.
Definitely.
And I think as a female, she kind of led the way, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. Megan, I mean, we spoke about your mum, but there are others, aren't there?
Oh yeah, God, I could probably list quite a few. I think Amy Shields, again, massive one for me. I always refer to her as my career wingwoman because she definitely cheers the hardest for me at every possible moment. We used to work together, so definitely her. And so Nikki Stevenson, she's the MD of Fine & Country. So again, she was worked at the company I used to work for, and just, I think when you work with somebody and then you see them soar like that, it's really naturally inspiring. She probably doesn't even realize that, but I think she is amazing. I think what she's achieved in her career is amazing. You know, and she's just a lovely person as well. So I think there's all of those people. I think we've got some great, you know, female presidents in the presidency team at Arla at the moment with Maxine and Harry. I think they are awesome in their own rights as well. So to be honest, we're so well represented for awesome women. Like I think we could easily sit here and do like list them off, but there's so many great ones.
It's interesting that property mark space is becoming very, very much more. I'm not sure if it was you, or somebody else said that Arla and NAA back in the day used to be pale, male, and stale.
Yeah, that was me.
And that's not the case now in any way, is it?
No, pale, male, and stale is my favorite phrase ever. But yeah, I think we're in this really great at Property Mark where it doesn't matter what pipework you've got, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, you know, it doesn't matter who you love, you know, you're in. So as long as you're good at your job and you got some passion, we'll take you.
Fantastic. So to all the young people out there that are making life decisions and they're deciding which industry to go into, Megan, do you feel now that it's a proper sort of career path that we've built for people, that there's progression, that there's a future for us all?
Yeah, but you've got to want to do it too. So, you know, all the women that we've all mentioned today, actually, every one of them, if you look at them, has grafted and they've tried really hard and they've put themselves out there and they've made that plan. So property is a great place for meeting people. It's great for networking. It's exciting. You have some weird stories that come out of it. It's absolutely nothing like selling sunset, but my God, can you take yourself from some places that you never thought? So yeah, I think that the path is there, but you've got to want to graft for it too. It's not going to land on your plate.
It is. Do you feel sometimes you have to work harder than your male counterpart to get to the same position?
I think definitely in my early career, like I used to turn up to do evaluation at like 22 and they'd look at like literally the men would be like, ugh, you know. So for me, that was why I became Arla qualified. I was taking the mick out of you this morning, wasn't I, that I only became qualified 2 years after you, because I felt like I had to do that because I didn't have the right pipework for that conversation, but it also meant that people kind of respected me more because I could just bamboozle them with qualification stuff.
It's yeah, it's certainly, I mean, you've retained most of your training. Well, what I've discovered in conversation with you, whereas mine's just like gone. Detail, not my thing at all. Need to revise that again. Sarah, we're getting to the end of your first podcast ever. Has it been okay?
It's been fine. I think in my head I built it up to be so bad. If you just seen me before, which is not like me at all, I was literally like, got no nails left. Adam phoned me before and asked me a question. I was like, I'm gonna have to call you back. But no, it's been lovely. It's been very like inspirational, I think, just listening to even just these three lovely ladies here and what they've been their stories. It's been great, but I've actually really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Sharon Carter, I need to buy you a drink and get the whole story, because off air before you gave us just a glimpse into your morning, and to me there are stories there.
Oh yes. One day I'll do a film.
Okay, really great question then for you. In the film of your life, who plays Sharon Carter? Which actress, which celeb?
Well, to be fair, I'm not really hot on films because I can't sit down for long enough. You guys have done really well to keep me sitting here for this long. So I'd have to say there's very few actresses that I can think of. But I'd like a bit of Cameron Diaz, because she's a bit like crazy wild, but inside there's actually a very clever lady. And I'd like to say that's me.
Okay, Sean, who's playing Sean in when they make a film called The Governor?
Oh, don't. I don't know. I'm thinking a bit Helen Bonham Carter, because I find her very, in a way, I'd like to be her, because she's quite enigmatic. And she does have that air of, I don't care, I'm going to do what I do, but she does it so well as well. And yeah, she'd be great if she would agree to it. I don't know if she would or not. I need to probably feed her a lot of cake.
All these actresses need feeding, you know. Sarah?
Me and Louise, who also works at Kerfuffle, was talking about this before, and actually, not that I think she's like compared to my life, but Jennifer Lopez, people. I mean, I saw her last film at 50 years old, to be able to do that with the whole with the dancing, the pole dancing and everything. You know, I would like my body to look like that now at 42, never mind at 50. So yeah, Jennifer Lopez.
I'm never going to have a body like that. I've given up working at it. Megan, I've asked you this question before, I feel.
You have. So Jennifer Lawrence, for sure, because she always plays really cool people in films. I think that she is, like me, exceptionally awkward and exceptionally clumsy. And I think that we align very well there.
Someone quoted her as being the present day Marilyn Monroe as well.
Yeah, I you know, I call that myself as well. So yeah,
I like Jennifer Lawrence. She's very real though as well.
Yeah,
so,
she's cool. I definitely think she's cool.
She is. I'd like to thank all of you for your time. I know that you're very busy people, so thank you very much, and thank you for contributing. I think it's fantastic. I see loads of content. And Megan, you've done a whole load of podcasts that I've had a little bit of involvement with, but there's loads of great content going out there, and I'm hoping that it's not all just tokenism, that people are kind of like just doing it just for the day. And I think we need to take this kind of inspiration and sprinkle just a little bit of it in every day, so that we make it just a sprinkle. We make it a bit more like it should be. Like this is life every day, rather than just one day a year where we celebrate and get behind people. It should happen every day. But thank you for being a driving force in all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
That's it, Sarah. It's over.